reacting to the college football playoff quarterfinals and a few of the other bowl games. In the Georgia Notre Dame game, even though Georgia only scored 10 points and was playing a backup quarterback, I don't think that it was his fault why they lost that game. Gunnar Stockton, I thought played pretty well. He made some really good throws in that game. The problem was that Georgia's offensive line got pushed around really badly by Notre Dame's defensive line, who wasn't even fully healthy in that game. And Georgia had no run game because of it, and Stockton didn't have good pass protection. But Gunnar Stockton, I think, played well enough to probably get to be Georgia's starting quarterback next season. And Georgia's defense played really well in this game. Notre Dame didn't put together one long touchdown drive. And Notre Dame, has two of the best running backs in the country, Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, and Georgia shut them down. And Riley Leonard only had 90 yards passing in the game. Really, the only offense that Notre Dame had was some quarterback runs. And really, the difference in this game was that special teams and turnovers. Notre Dame got that kick return for a touchdown, and then they were able to force two fumbles that really helped them because the first fumble that they forced at Georgia was in the red zone, so that probably cost Georgia points. And then the other fumble that they forced, they got the ball at the 13, so they were able to get their only touchdown in that game. But other than that, Georgia actually outplayed Notre Dame because they were able to move the ball more than Notre Dame was. But Notre Dame's offensive line also got pushed around in this game. And Notre Dame, I don't think has much of a chance of winning the national championship, and neither does Penn State, who they're going to play next. I don't think either of those two teams are quite complete enough. I think Ohio State and Texas are the two most complete teams of the four. But I'll go and tell you that I'm pretty sure Ohio State is going to win the whole thing, and especially if they keep playing like they have been. But Georgia just wasn't as good this year as they had been in the 3 years before this one. And it really wasn't their defense's fault. Their defense wasn't quite as good as it had been the 3 years before this one, but it was still plenty good enough to give them a chance to win the whole thing. The real problem with Georgia this year was their offensive line surprisingly taking a big step back and causing them to surprisingly actually struggle to run the football this season. And Georgia, as long as I can remember, has had a really good run game even before Kirby Smart got there. But even though Alabama obviously seems to no longer be the top college football program, Georgia isn't either. They're just a very good football program. And Georgia winning the SEC championship, of course, was a good accomplishment. It's never easy to do that, but that still doesn't take away that they lost to the worst Alabama team in 17 years, and they got dominated by Ole Miss and ended up losing just as many games as Ole Miss did. And they became the first team in over 30 years for Notre Dame to get a big win against. But the Ohio State Texas game. I'll go ahead and tell you that I think that it's probably going to be a blowout, especially if Texas plays the way they did in their Peach Bowl game against Arizona State, a game that they really probably should have lost uh, the way they played in it. So Gadaboo from Arizona State really proved that he actually is an elite running back, and he wasn't just good because he faced a weak competition, because he pretty much did whatever he wanted to Texas in that game. He had 242 yards of total offense. He had 143 rushing and 99 receiving. He's going to be great in the NFL, I think, not just because of how good of a running back that he is, but he's also a very good receiver too. And Texas's offensive line against Arizona State got dominated actually, and that was surprising because Texas had a huge size and talent advantage over Arizona State's defensive line, and Texas's offense just really struggled in that game as a whole. They couldn't run the football, and obviously that's going to have to change if they're going to have any chance to beat Ohio State. Because Ohio State, the first playoff game for them against Tennessee, even though I didn't think that this was true, I guess you could have said that Tennessee just wasn't any good and they didn't belong in the college football playoff. But you can't say that about Oregon for sure because Oregon belonged, no doubt. They were up 13-0 and had beaten Ohio State earlier on in the season, and they had the best quarterback in the country and great players at the line of scrimmage on both sides, and Ohio State dominated them at the line of scrimmage on both sides, and they were actually able to make Dillon Gabriel uncomfortable in the pocket, which is very hard to do. And Ole Miss really showed a few nights ago how garbage the ACC really is. Of course, I already knew this, but the ACC really had no business even having one team in the college football playoff, especially not two. Duke was one of the ACC's best teams this year, and Ole Miss destroyed them 52 to 20. They did pretty much whatever they wanted to on Duke offensively in this game, and they could have had even three more points if Lane Kiffin wasn't allergic to kicking field goals. And don't give me in the comments, well, Duke just didn't have their starting quarterback, or this game would have been really close because they lost by 32 points. So this game was going to be a win for Ole Miss no matter what. And actually, that backup quarterback that Duke had playing in that game played pretty well. Ole Miss was just so much better at the line of scrimmage, and they had much better players at the wide receiver position and everywhere on defense that Duke had no chance. And Ole Miss, had struggled to score a lot this season against SEC competition. So that really shows that the ACC is not very good. And Alabama played terrible against Michigan. I watched that whole game, and they turned the ball over three times in their first four offensive possessions, which all led to Michigan points. Now, Michigan couldn't do much offensively in this game, but Michigan, hasn't hardly been able to do anything offensively all season, so that wasn't really uh, surprising or a good thing really for Alabama because that's something to have been expected. But Alabama played terrible offensively in this game, and they should have been able to do better. Alabama had their whole starting offensive line in this game, and Michigan was without all but one of their starters on their defensive line, and their offensive line still got pushed around by Michigan, and uh, Jalen Milroe got sacked so many times in this game, and Alabama had no run game. And Milroe, I saw, is going to go to the NFL now, but I've seen that he could be a first round pick, but I don't get it. He just doesn't seem that good to me, which is why I didn't have him on my list of quarterbacks in the first round. Jalen Milroe seems like a quarterback that had a really high ceiling, and he's a very good athlete. And there are some really good things about him, but he also has some struggles, and he just never really seemed to reach his ceiling. And in this game, which turned out to be his last college game, I really saw the same problems with him that I had seen with him his whole college career, struggling to throw those medium passes in the 10 to 20 yard range, and also struggling badly to read defenses. Really, one of the most impressive things Nick Saban ever did at Alabama was making the 14 playoff and almost winning a playoff game with Jalen Milroe playing quarterback because I don't think Jalen Milroe is going to be any good in the NFL. The team that drafts him better have a very good defense. And it really only took Kalen DeBoer 1 year to destroy Alabama's football program. And if 9-4 is all he can do next year, he's going to be fired because the expectations are so much higher at Alabama than your average football program. Like Vanderbilt, if a coach went 9-4 in his first season, there would probably be a statue put up of him. But at Alabama, it's to where he's already now in danger of getting fired. And Kalen DeBoer is supposed to be an offensive expert, but their offense was better last year with Nick Saban, and their defense obviously took a step back, which was to be expected. Mm, but the team just does not look anything like a Nick Saban coached team did. And that will be it with this video. And please subscribe. And thanks for watching. And I'll be back